As Trusty and Rachel looked around, they could see what Mrs. Twist meant. The pineapple chunks that she was trying to shake from their jar had become one big sticky lump. The chocolate bars were soft and soggy, as if they'd been lying in the sun, and the sherbet was freezing so fiercely it made everyone sneeze. Rachel nudged Trusty. "Look," she said in a low voice, pointing at one of the shelves. Trusty looked and saw a box of pink sugar mice, all with their paws over their eyes as if they were scared of something. The jelly babies looked worried too. They were all holding their hands, and to Trusty's surprise, a group of jelly snakes in a jar were wriggling crossly and actually hissing. She quickly pushed the jar of snacks to the back of the shelf before anyone could notice. "Something very weird is going on," Rachel whispered, as the two friends heard a low grumbling hum start up from a jar of stripy humbugs. Trusty nodded. "It's got to be goblin mischief," she whispered back. Mrs. Twist put down the jar of pineapple tubes and pulled out a tray of chocolates instead. Then she sighed in dismay. "Oh no, what's happened to these?" Rachel and Trusty went over to look. The sweets had all melted on the tray, and right in the middle was a big hollow where something had pressed into the soft chocolate. Rachel nudged Trusty. She had immediately recognized the shape in the melted chocolate. It was a goblin footprint. The girls exchanged glances, and Trusty promptly peered down at the floor. "If the goblins got chocolate all over one foot," she muttered to Rachel, "he'll have left footprints everywhere." Rachel added in a low voice. Then she pointed down at the floor. "Just like those." The girls quietly slipped away from the shop counter, followed the trail of chocolatey footprints. They seemed to lead to a door at the back of the shop. "This is the door to Mrs. Twist's stockroom," Trusty whispered to her friend. "We cannot just sneak in there without asking." Rachel bit her lip. "Well, we can't just say, 'Excuse me, Mrs. Twist, but we think that might be a goblin in your stockroom.' Either we'll—" Crash! Both girls jumped as they heard a loud noise on the other side of the door. "Oh no, it sounds like the goblins wreaking havoc in there," Rachel hissed. Before Trusty could reply, she heard Mrs. Twist saying, "This is no good. I cannot give people these spoiled sweets. I'll get some new ones from the stockroom." "No," cried Trusty hurriedly. She couldn't let Mrs. Twist go in there, not with a sneaky goblin on the loose. "I mean, she faltered as Mrs. Twist looked at her in surprise. "You cannot leave the shop, Mrs. Twist. Rachel and I will fetch the sweets for you." Mrs. Twist smiled. "Thank you, dear," she said gratefully. "Bring out anything you like the look of." Trusty nodded and cautiously pushed open the stockroom door. As both girls peeped into the room, they gasped in horror. Bottles and jars had been knocked over, and there were sweets scattered all across the floor. But worst of all, there was a tiny fairy struggling desperately to hang on to her magical party bag as grinning goblin fought to tug it out of her hand. "It's Honey, the sweet fairy," cried Trusty, "and she is in trouble."